Something else you may have to do on a standardized test or on your unit test is evaluate the picture of the graph. In this case, we've got y equals mx plus b. We know from this graph that the y-intercept is at -1. We also know that if we start from that y-intercept, we're going to go up 1 and over to the right 1, 2, 3 to hit another point on this line. From here, we're going to repeat the slope. Go up 1, there's a +1, so it's upward, and then to the right 1, 2, 3 before we hit the next point. So analyzing this graph tells us that we have a positive slope because the m is positive. And we also know the range of it because it's up 1 over 3, up 1 over 3. That's the size of the stair step. On the negative slope, it's really the same thing that we saw here. However, this time our y-intercept is 5. This graph crosses the y-axis at a +5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now from this position, we are going to follow the slope, which is negative. So we're supposing that we're going to be coming downward here from the second to the fourth quadrants. And we're going to go down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it tells us to go in a positive or right to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. There, we've hit a dot, a point on the line. From this point, we can repeat the slope. Down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To the right 3. 1, 2, 3. When we have a flat line, that would be 0 slope. We have no x piece to this. This is just a constant. Y is equal to a -4. We're really in this position right here. This is completely gone, this x part, because there is no x. Whatever the x is, y is going to be at a -4. So we could go 5 out, but we're coming down 4. We can go -2 and down 4. This is where the points would line up across this line. So we would have a flat surface. It's 0 slope. There is no slope that's present. In the undefined, in this case, our x term is constant. The x term is always going to be, on this particular graph, a -4. I didn't realize I was going to use the same one, but here we go. The x term, though, no matter what the y is, it doesn't matter where you are on the vertical, it's always going to be over 4. A straight line down, up and down, vertically. That is undefined. It's kind of like mathematicians' heads exploded with it because there isn't a slope. It's like, you just walk off the cliff. So they call that undefined. If the equation for it, you would see it. The answer that you would get with your calculations would be that. So -4 doesn't divide into 0, or it does, but it's 0 times. So that's what gives us that flat line. In this case, we've got the reverse of it. The -4 would be divided by 0, and it's not possible to divide by 0. That is not, that's an undefined activity. So that's what the equation might look like. So now you've got to think about taking a picture, looking at a graph, and understanding the parts of it. You may be asked for that. On some of the questions that are given on ACT and SAT and a lot of the standardized tests that you'll take along the way, plus your unit tests, the analysis of the graph is what's questioned, not necessarily the working of it. Of course, if you're taking the chapter test for your classroom teacher, you would be heavily into the math part of it, but there would certainly be some interpretations of the graph questions. And one last point before I leave this, there is a test of, is it a function? Sometimes the question is going to be asked about, is this graph a function? All of these graphs are functions. This one is not. In a function, you can only have one point that is connected vertically. If you took a test line and came down on this graph, you would only hit one point on this line. But on this one, if you took a vertical line, all these points would be hit. And that is not a function. That's how you tell. It's the test line. If the line can be drawn vertically and only hit one point on a graph, then it's a function. If you're hitting more than one point, it is not. Another analysis type question that you might be tested upon is parallel lines and perpendicular lines. So parallel lines have the same slope. Obviously, they are going in the same direction. Perpendicular lines cross each other, forming a right angle. So if we had this graph, if we were to draw a line parallel to this graph, we would have to keep the same slope. So that graph would also be 1/3. So we would have y equals x, and then the constant can vary. Maybe we'd have +7. But this has to be the same, the slope piece, to give you a parallel line. Let's do a perpendicular line to this one. Again, it has to do with slope. We're taking the slope and flipping the terms around, so it's 3/5. And then we're also going to take the sign and use the reverse of that. So this would be the slope that you'd be looking at. And the whole equation would be y equals 3/5 x plus, I'll use the 7. This will give us a perpendicular lines. They'll look like this. And where they cross, they will form a right angle. And these two equations will give us lines that look like this.